Hello, Tar Heel Nation. Welcome back to another episode of UNC Hoops Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Dan DeWitt, and Merry Christmas. I hope everybody had a great Christmas yesterday. I hope the holidays are going well, and we're going to look into the new year. So, Happy New Year to everybody as well. So, thanks for joining in. Thanks for listening, watching, however you're taking in the podcast. Appreciate you guys helping me unite Tar Heel Nation, and we got some good stuff to talk about. It's been a little break. I didn't get to it before Christmas, obviously, but we're going to talk about the exciting, um, big time, must win, whatever you want to call it, Ohio State win, the gritty, physical, solid win against Michigan. We'll see what kind of team they end up, but solid win right now anyway. But yeah, the Ohio State one was kind of a as big as a must non-conference win as you can have. So we're going to jump into those. Obviously, we'll look ahead. We got more ACC play coming up. We got jumping into 2023. So it's a good time to be a Tar Heel. Obviously, exciting after this win. That we struggled there for a little bit. We hoped that we were getting it straight with some of those, the Citadel and some of those lower teams, and now we feel like we're rolling a little bit. So let's jump in. Stay Vigilant says, "What's up? Go Heels." We are back ranked number 25. Thank you for reminding me of that. Stay Vigilant. We are back in the poll. If that is something that worries you or concerns you, we are number 25 in the top 25. So, JP2, what is up, man? Good to have you here with us. Two crucial wins. Yeah, definitely the Ohio State one I think was crucial. Michigan one I think is definitely a bonus. I don't know if it's as crucial, but very nice to have, like I said, a very solid win. So let's start off with the Ohio State win. Um, Ended up 89-84 in overtime. Remember, this is the New York game for um, RJ Davis going back home. And I'm gonna be honest with you, heading into this, well, not even heading into this one. Um, I'm trying to remember how the first half went. If we started off a little slow, I think we started off pretty solid. We looked pretty good, and we had a kind of lull in there where we played some sloppy, not so good basketball. We came out in the second half. First few minutes looked good, and then we dropped off again. And I actually switched the channel. I think it was to the third place World Cup game. Not a game I really cared about, but I was like, you know, I gotta try something here. And I think it was even during commercial, and then I just didn't flip it back. By the time I flipped it back, we were down two, and we had made the comeback, obviously. And so it's like, oh great, like I can't watch anymore. The whole superstition and go where you go, do what you do kind of thing. Uh, so I didn't watch. I was watching the score on my phone, and it was brutal, obviously. Tight game. You guys remember how the regulation ended when we were down? Well, they made the basket. Sensible made a basket with 2 seconds left to put them up by two. So we had 2 seconds to go full length of the court. We'll get into that. So that happened. So I'm watching, overtime, and then it's like we get a bigger lead. I felt a little more comfortable. So I did go back and watch from when I had stopped watching, watched our comeback, watched rest of regulation. Obviously, the Pete Nance shot, and into overtime. I watched all of that. So did it. But yeah, that is not the way to go through it. But I did it. We got the win. That's what's important. Um, and yeah, Baycott was definitely huge, especially Michigan. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll get into the stats. So yeah, Ohio State, still a little bit of roller coaster, but our guys fought through it. I think big thing is we did throw in some more guys. Let me look at the box score here just to make sure. But I mean, obviously, overtime game, we had Caleb 42 minutes, RJ and Pete with 40 minutes, Mondo with 38, Leaky 34. And so really it's just Puff Johnson and Seth Trumbull again, 13 and 11. Tyler Nickel at 5, Styles 2, Jalen Washington. I guess he got in for some seconds, but um, I think the importance was getting Seth Trimble in there a little bit more in the first half. I think Tyler Nichols, all of his were in the first half, and our guys are a little bit fresher going down the stretch. And then Michigan as well. Uh, we had, the starters actually, well, again, it wasn't overtime, but RJ had 38, and then it was Caleb 35, 32 for Mondo, and then 29 and 26 for Leaky and Pete, and then Puff 20, Seth Trimble 18. So you see those two getting a little more level playing field with the starters. So it's not like we feel like there's such a drop off. Now, again, Tyler Nickel had 1 in this game. Jalen Washington 1. Love to see those guys get a little. I'd love to see Styles get a little bit more. Obviously, got done when he comes back, but right now we're pretty much a 7-man rotation. But it is important to at least get to 7. Again, last year, not quite at this point yet, but a little bit farther down the season, we're running with 5, and then we're lucky to see 6. So, um, again, uh, good to see those guys, and again, I think good to see them early, give some of those guys a rest, especially Caleb. It seems like RJ stays in, and again, in those one, I know Michigan, RJ 38 out of the 40 minutes. Um, what was he at? 40 out of the 45 minutes against Ohio State. So it seems like Caleb is kind of, again, Puff comes in for, I think a lot of times it's been even Mondo and pushes Pete to the 5, but Seth comes in for Caleb, gives him a little stretch, and then it's the back and forth, get RJ a little bit of rest. But um, Seth's got to come around offensively a little bit. What is it, 0 points in the Ohio State game with only one turn or one assist, and then he had 1 point with, what other stats did he have? A couple of fouls and a turnover. So really not giving us anything offensively yet. And I feel like he can. I think he's athletic enough. I think, I don't know if the jumper's there, and maybe that's the problem is, um, people laying off and playing for the drive. But he's got to give us a little bit, be a little more aggressive, whatever it is. But he's got to give us more. Um, so Mark Dalton says, "I was so frustrated during the Ohio State game. By the way, it ended. Feels like it's the spark we needed." Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I turned it off, but and the exciting thing about the Ohio State game, we've had some in the past where it's like people making bad decisions on both teams. It seems like nobody wants to win. This one, it was we were executing, they were knocking down shots, kind of going back and forth that way, and then obviously we had excellent execution to go into overtime. So I said we'd get back into it. Obviously, the full or the half court pass up to RJ so that we can advance the ball, take it out of bounds, up during like where our what is it, our players or our coaches' box is, and then decoy stuff with Mondo and again, it's been well documented. But if you hadn't heard the backstory to all that stuff of Leaky and Armando not thinking it's going to work and kind of planning on something else. And then Pete Nance kind of giving Leaky kind of the head nod or the eyes or whatever of like, hey, get me the ball. This is what I want. Perfect pass over the top. He gets it, turned around, gets it just out of his hands in the nick of time to knock it down, gets into overtime. And yeah, obviously the momentum going into that overtime, the momentum going into Michigan, and hopefully propelling us here into ACC play as well. Um, there was definitely some frustration. Obviously, I turned the game off at one point. But yeah, I agree. I think hopefully that could be, again. We don't know how the rest of the season's going, but if it goes how we want it to, we're going to look back at that Ohio State game, and that's going to be kind of the turnaround. So stay vigilant. Says I feel the win at Ohio State has us cutting the cord from last year. A lot of people have been talking about that, and the pressure. Again, hopefully now again we're back into the top 25. Do the guys relax a little bit? This break we've had, do they come back and like, oh, we got Pitt. I think it's at home even. Um, we got this. No, it is at Pittsburgh. But do they relax a little bit on that and like, hey, we got it figured out, and then we go back to ground zero. That's what we can't have. Hopefully, it is something that propels us forward. Um, so JB2 says, great things happen when Caleb Love decides to attack the basket. I'm hoping he's finally learning that. I think he knows it, but again, it's that whole NBA draft. People want to see me knock down shots consistently. He can knock down kind of the step back, the long three, and he just wants to keep proving people that. And plus, I think it's his confidence as well. He keeps saying, "I can make these shots." It's just he doesn't always make the shots. I think he knows. I mean, Hubert's talked about it a lot. I'm sure I know they've told Caleb a lot, but like the whole stat of like over the last 2 years when he has 5 assists, we're undefeated. In the tournament, that was a big thing. They kept talking about when he gets downhill, when he's driving addition and all that stuff. But yeah, so Stabilin says he agrees and just moving the ball. Yeah, the biggest thing has been the movement of the ball, and I think if I talked about it in the last game is getting Mondo out, just getting us out and running, but especially Armando running. He posts so low down on the block that people just can't stop him. Instead of having to drive and catching the ball, 15, 17 feet out, and then he's got to drive and dribble to make a move and the spin move and all that stuff. Whereas if he gets planted down low, I mean, it's an easy 2 points pretty much. Um, but yeah, so Sinister Star Heel, good to have you back. He says Heel's back in the top 25. So yeah, so we get the big win against Ohio State, and it propels us into the Michigan game. Mark Dalton says, when we're feeding Mondo, Caleb's attacking, we're at our best. The shooting will be there in March. And yeah, I mean, I think, let me check the stats again. I think some of the shooting was there in one of these. We shot 6 for 28 from three against Ohio State. I feel like one of these, well, we were 7 for 20 from three against Michigan. So yeah, nothing spectacular. RJ Davis was 4 for 8 against Michigan. So that's obviously bigger. Puff was 1 for 1. Leaky hit one, so that's always big. So yeah, we were 4 for 13 for was Caleb against Ohio State. 1 for 5 RJ. 0 for 6 for Pete. But Leaky did knock one down as well. Tyler Nichol missed both of his threes. So not as good as I remembered. But yeah, I agree. The shooting's going to come around as we move the ball around, get better shots offense that way, that stuff. 300 says he doesn't care about our ranking. It only matters 1 week in April. I'm kind of the same. I mean, obviously, we want to be ranked the farther we go into the season because that means we've been playing well. But yeah, to me, the ranking really doesn't matter. So 300 says he was at the game in MSG. It was like a March Madness game. Thank you, Tar Heel Nation, for showing out. We were deep in there. Turned MSG into the Dean Dome. It was special. Yeah, I mean, it sounded great on TV as well. Again, people have commented. I saw people on Twitter, like even before the game started, saying over half the crowd is Carolina. Whatever percentage, most of the crowd in MSG was Carolina, and so that's awesome. And it did show, or it sound like it on TV as well. So that's huge. Again, we got to make sure we can play away from home, but that's awesome that we can travel and make MSG like the Dean Dome and rock it so well. That's again pretty amazing. So on to the Michigan game. Um, Ended up at 80-76 win. And a little plug here, if you haven't joined the score prediction contest yet, um, tremendous one here for North Carolina and Michigan. There was a ton of people, within 5, a couple within 3, and then our winner. You're gonna have to go back to YouTube and look at like my last video or last short on there. But I think it was Mark Crisp on Twitter. It's at Marky D. Shoot, I'm not gonna remember, but go look at the last short on my YouTube channel, or go look at Twitter. It's on there as well. But he guessed 80-75, and it was 80-76. So um, we're ramping that up a little bit here this year. I'd love for you guys to join if you haven't already. Uh, Again, I put it out on Twitter. I put it out on YouTube. I usually make a little short that you can put your score prediction and winner. Make sure you put the winner, um, put it in the description or in the comments of the YouTube channel on that video, or put it uh, on Twitter on that thread where I post it, and I go through both of them, get the closest one, and then hopefully the next day, make a little short for the winner there, get a little shout out there. So would love for you guys to join that if you haven't already. But yeah, Michigan game, 80-76, got a little chippy there. We got Hunter Dickinson with the elbow to Mondo, bloody lip, whole kind of story there. And then the and one where Caleb scored, and then Hunter kind of stood over him. And I don't know what was going on. It kind of looked like Caleb maybe pushed his legs away from him a little bit as he was standing over him, but then Hunter kind of nudged him and kicked him a little bit. And then obviously Caleb got up in his face. There was, I guess, I don't know if I even heard definitively what all came of that, but it sounded like a four-way technical with two on Michigan, two on us. Um, but it seemed to really fire us up, got us going. Obviously, Caleb is going to get fired up after something like that. So that was huge. JB2 says here, it's great to see Hubert fired up against Michigan. I think the guy's fed up. Yeah, I mean, it sounded like they did against Ohio State as well. It sounded like he kind of got into them a little bit more than usual at halftime, and they fed off that. And then he was fired up against Michigan. It's like Hubert and Juwan had played each other in college a little bit, maybe in a pretty big game. But yeah, it was good to see him get fired up and see a little bit more from Hubert on the sidelines there. So um, Mark Dalton said, "When I hear the Tar Heel chant on the broadcast, I know we're showing out." Sinister Tar Heel says Michigan game was epic. Baycott Love, etc. tore it up. Um, Stay vigilant says I like to see the aggressive play intentions, high shoving and stuff. That's what we need to show we're not soft and will not be pushed around. Yeah, I mean, and Caleb Love kind of said it too. Like coach tells us to not back down. I don't know that he wants shoves. Obviously, he doesn't want any punches thrown, anything like that. But stand up for yourself and yeah, not be soft. Baycott looks to be back. Yeah, hopefully he's healthy enough. I still think the shoulder could be bothering him, but hopefully the treatments and stuff it's getting better, week by week. Again, this little break here. Hopefully, yeah, he comes back. Somebody said maybe he was a little out of shape coming into the season, and we're kind of hitting the shape. I don't know that for sure. I don't know if I necessarily buy that completely, but he definitely has looked better. So I don't know if I even went through it in Ohio State. We were led by Armando's 28 points, 15 rebounds. Caleb Love 22 points. RJ Davis 21 rebounds, 21 points, 8 rebounds. And Caleb did have 7 assists against Ohio State. Those were the big ones there. Michigan, Mondo 26 points, 5 rebounds. And I know I was wrong in the last podcast. Remembering last year's game against Michigan, where Hunter didn't do much, was in a lot of foul trouble, and not as much foul trouble, I don't think this year, but a little bit of foul trouble, and he just never got going. He was 3 for 9 shooting, 9 points, 8 rebounds, did foul out eventually, 3 turnovers, but yeah, Mondo just handled him this year. RJ had 19 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Caleb Love 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, but did have 5 turnovers. And then Leaky Black 9 points, 10 rebounds. And then Pete's been down a little bit. Like I said, he was 0 for 6 shooting from 3 against Ohio State. He only had 3 points in this game against Michigan. And then bench points, we got 3 from Puff, 1 from Seth, and 1 from Jalen. So not much again going there. We got to keep that going for sure. But like I said, huge win against Ohio State. Again, it could be a turning point to where we look back on the season and say Ohio State's where we turned it around. And then Michigan is just a nice solid win. Now we got to cheer for them. We beat them, so now we need them to play well and be a tournament team so that it's better on our resume as well. So um, JB2 says we gotta give Seth Trimble some love for slowing down Jet Howard during our run at the end of the first half. His defense his defense all year has been great. Definitely came in kind of for Leaky and took on the challenge. Jet Howard, definitely taller than him, but I think Seth a little more physical than he is, a little bit stronger. And for whatever reason, yeah, his defense was working. Um, and Jet Howard's a solid player. He still ended up with 17 points, I think it was. Michigan, yeah, 17 points. And then the other guy going, Kobe Puffkin, I think he was maybe the other one that got a technical, ended up fouling out, but he had 22 points. 7 for 10 for shooting. Even Jet Howard 6 for 12, so some efficient shooting there. And definitely got to give it to Seth for stepping up there. So as we turn forward, we're coming past Christmas. We are obviously past Christmas. One more game left in the 2022 calendar season. That'll be at Pittsburgh on Friday, December 30th. It's a noon Eastern tip on ACC Network. I'm actually going to be traveling that game that day, so I'm hoping I'm going to be able to watch it on my phone as I'm traveling. Hopefully, reception's good enough, all that good stuff, so that I can catch that one on the go. Obviously, it'll be recorded to watch later, but trying to catch that one as I'm going, and then we turn to 2023. We turn that calendar over. We'll be 3 games into the ACC play. No, is it 3 or 4? I think we're 1-1 right now, right? We're 1-1 the ACC right now. Yeah. So Pittsburgh is the third ACC game. And we'll be into our fourth ACC game as we play Wake Forest at home on January 4th. It's a late tip, 9 p.m. Eastern tip, also on ACC Network. And I should be able to podcast. I get back home the second, so I'll see that one at home, but probably won't podcast until after that Wake Forest game on Wednesday. Um, Probably on Thursday night, because well, maybe Thursday even during the day. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But after the Wake Forest game, we'll pod before the Saturday game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame comes to town after that, so we'll podcast before that one. Again, we hope that the momentum gets us going. Somebody else said, we got to keep it rolling with Pittsburgh. 300 says Pittsburgh's our next victim. Stay vigilant says revenge. Um, and so yeah, we hope that Ohio State, Michigan, even before that, the Citadel. Who did we beat? We beat somebody before the Citadel too, right? Are we on a 4-game winning streak? Yeah, Georgia Tech, Citadel, Ohio State, Michigan. So obviously we dropped those 4 in a row. We got 4 in a row going here, and we hope that it keeps going. Hopefully this break is more rest, and yeah, we keep rolling here against Pittsburgh. It is at their place. They've had some decent wins. I don't remember. I don't have their schedule in front of me to know who they beat, but I feel like I've seen teams like, yeah, they lost that one to Pittsburgh even at home or something like that. We're going to their place again. Talent wise, we should win. We just got to show up. It's more about us at this point. And Wake Forest too. Obviously, they took down Duke. Duke was missing two I think starters. They're 2 freshmen coming in, Lively and Whitehead, I think it is. But they took them down. It was at Wake Forest. So this one's at Chapel Hill at our place. So hopefully that helps. And we can get into a 6-game winning streak. We'll jump up 2 more games in the ACC if we can pull those off. But somebody here, Mark Dalton says, I think we should maybe start Puff. Pete could be the scoring punch off the bench. Puff brings the energy from the opening tip. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it wouldn't be again how I feel like, yeah, Pete is the better scorer. Puff hasn't shown a ton. Obviously, he can, yeah, like you said, the hustle plays. He gets some offensive rebounds, puts in. He gets some transition buckets where he scores, gets fouled, whatever. He'll knock down the occasional three. Pete, I feel like, is more consistent, and probably a better scorer. Obviously, he's dropped off the last 2 games. Again, to me, it doesn't matter who starts. It's more about who's finishing the game. Pete's still getting his minutes. So if he didn't start and then he came in and got his minutes between the 4 and the 5 spot, spelling Mondo. That's probably the problem though. Is the way that Puff plays. You love it, but can he sustain it for long enough? And they should be at that age. We hope the same effort is coming from other people. We've seen Tyler Hansbrough do it for lots of minutes. But just the way he plays, can he sustain it? Because then Pete is probably coming in for Mondo, playing the 5 first. When Mondo's ready to come back in, comes for Puff, and is Puff exhausted by then? I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it needs to happen, but um, I don't think we need to switch anything up now. If we got to a point, and maybe during that 4-game losing streak, maybe Roy Williams would have switched some of that just to try something different. But it would be interesting. Stay Vigilant says he agrees about starting Puff. Um, JB2 says there's a big announcement coming Wednesday night for the class of 2024 too. Stay tuned. Yeah, there's a 5-star. Well, there's a 5-star announcing, and we are in his top. I don't know. I saw top 6. I saw a lot of people talking about his top 2. So possible big announcement coming Wednesday night for the 2024 class. So 300 said, I thought it was in the Dome. Is that the Pittsburgh game you're talking about? And on the schedule, it says at Pittsburgh. It says in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, noon Friday, or yeah, December 30th, Friday. Um, so stay vigilant says it's tough. I think this is talk about Pete starting Pete or Puff. Pete is more talented probably, but has been in a little slump. Um, 300 says we need Jalen Washington to get more minutes and work him in. I think he will. I hope he will. I mean, I agree. I think him. I think again. I would get Dontrez. I wouldn't mind if Dontrez kind of played what Nickel's minutes were. Nickel played a few more minutes just to keep our guys rested. We cannot go into March exhausted and lots of minutes on our guys' legs and then expect to make the same run. I just don't think that's going to happen. We got to kind of save some of the legs here in case we need those guys in some of those games. Say Vision says we'll never have another Tyler Hansborough. Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, of, of course, that's one in a generation, if not multi generational. I totally agree there. Um, JB2 says once Pete starts hitting his open looks, we'll be fine. And I mean, he's had games where he's led us, right? There was games, unfortunately, they weren't pretty games sometimes, but there was game, there was the Gardner Webb game. He kept us kind of in it in the first half with his scoring, and then didn't get the ball in the second half hardly. Another game, I know he had 28 or something, and really led us. I think that was maybe without Mondo. Um, and so yeah, he's definitely capable, able. Um, yeah, I don't know what it is. If there's times where he looks really comfortable and he's on and kind of fits in, and then somebody said it. I don't know where it was on Twitter, if in one of my group chats, kind of said like Pete Nance just looks lost. I think that was the Michigan game. And yeah, it was more kind of defensively, just kind of looked lost, didn't know how we were guarding the ball screen, and whether he was switching or hedging and stuff like that. So maybe that was just his game. You remember these. I mean, again, he's a veteran, so he's what, 22. But you know, things happen. Like, these are real life people. Stuff could happen in his life and could affect him. So who knows what was going on? But yeah, there's been times where he looks really confident and like he's been there for 4 years, and then there's times where he looks like the new guy and he doesn't know what's going on, he's like, and I think he is. He's willing to kind of be in the background if we don't need him. If Caleb's going, if Mondo's going, that kind of stuff, he's fine kind of just doing the little stuff. But we need him to do that little stuff and then add a scoring punch as well, I think, if we're going to be who we want to be. So E2G22 star says the way we're playing now is also keeping the opposing team running up their starters minutes too. Some teams, I mean, I don't know. I got just the Michigan and Ohio State minutes. I mean, yeah, Michigan pretty much played 7 guys. They had their starters almost all in. I mean, Hunter was the only one not in 30. They were all 33, 32. Hunter was 27, and then they had Joey Baker actually played 19 minutes for him. Another guy at 14, and then 5 and 4. So pretty much seven guys there. Ohio State played 8. I mean, they had their starters all in 30, anywhere from 39 down to 32, and then off the bench they had a 16, 12, and a 21. And that's what I'd like to see. If we could get 8 to 9 guys where the guys on the bench are between 8 to 15 minutes. Again, maybe Seth Trimble's a little bit higher. We saw him and Puff a little bit higher against Michigan. But if we could get 8 or 9 guys where 8 of them are in double digit minutes, and then the other guy's at like 8 or something like that. I think that's where we would be our toughest. But again, we have to get production off the bench. Then we kind of saw it against the Citadel, but is it just the team we're playing? Puff's got to be reliable on offense. So that Tremble's got to get going a little bit on our offense. Tyler Nichols, I've liked his game. I don't think he's forced stuff. He's missed some shots, but he's had games where he's knocked some down. It might have been the Citadel, but he had like 16 points. Dontrez, when he comes in, he's got to kind of be like Puff, where it's all energy, and then offensive rebound, put back, wide open jumper, attacking the basket, that kind of stuff. Get out in transition. We need him to do that. Obviously, Dunn, when he comes back, Jalen Washington, he's got some moves. as he gets more comfortable. I mean, we got the guys there. We just got to be comfortable getting them in, getting them minutes, and allowing them to do what they've been doing their whole lives because they didn't get to North Carolina for no reason. So JB2 says, I imagine it's tough going from being the guy at Northwestern to the fourth scoring option for us. Pete will be fine as the year goes on. It definitely has to be tough, but I think he's totally okay with it. Like I said, I think he's sometimes too okay being in the background and not being a little more aggressive. We've heard Hubert kind of say that again early in the season before maybe we were rolling like we are, but we've heard him say like, "Hey, I want you to act like you're the guy." So Say Vision says he agrees. Pete will continue to grow. Yeah, I mean, I think he's too smart, too good of a player not to. And I think the guys like him. Seems like anyway from comments and stuff, they get along, and it's not like they're mad at him for coming in and taking minutes or anything like that. I feel like they know they need him, and um, it's yeah, I don't know. It's just finding the right balance, I guess. So. I think that's going to do it, guys. Again, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. Be safe. And we'll be back in 2023. We'll be back next year, I guess it is. Maybe that's how I need to end it this year. We'll be back next year after that Wake Forest game, before the Notre Dame game. But happy holidays to everybody. Hope as well. Be safe. Thank you again for joining live, listening later to the audio podcast. You guys are killing it. Keep spreading the word. Keep sharing it with, as you gather with your families here in the holidays. If they're a Tar Heel fan, let them know. And help them join the team here, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or anywhere else. Just let them know. Just ask them if they know what a podcast is, and share this one with them if they're a Tar Heel fan. But let's keep uniting Tar Heel Nation, and yeah, hopefully it's we keep rolling into the new year. So 300 says Happy New Year. JB2, great pod, Dan. Happy New Year. Chat from 300. Go Heels. Tar Heel Nation. Happy holidays all. Stay vigilant says later. Happy New Year. So yeah, that's going to end it for us here. We're going to keep rolling it. We're going to keep bringing it, just like the Tar Heels wheels. So thank you guys. Until next time, go Heels.